Bego Mika
from BMZ. Then we shall have the introduction of the global program from Klaus, and then the 3 cases from the 3 countries. Then we shall conclude with a discussion and key messages. You're welcome. Before we get to the opening remarks, I would like to just a quick reminder and a few notes, things to note for our speakers and participants. A quick reminder to the speakers, we have a very tight session, so please keep time. Please make sure you give your presentation within the allocated time. And for our participants, please, you're welcome to engage in the chat, ask all the questions that you want to know. If the speakers are giving their presentations and you want some clarification, please ask in the chat. And if you see a question that you already want to ask, like it, the most liked questions will be shared during our discussion, and you'll have the opportunity for the speakers to answer those most liked questions. So if you see a question that you'd like to ask already in the chat, like it, and it will be shared. Yes, I would like to invite our first speaker to give the opening remarks, Mr. Martin Hope. He is Head of Division Food and Nutrition, Security, Global Food Policy and Fisheries in the BMZ. You're welcome, Mr. Hope. Take over, please.
Madam Moderator, colleagues, friends, participants, thank you very much for having me. And I'm indeed delighted to be opening today's session of the Global Landscapes Forum. Why? Because the Global Landscapes Forum, and indeed very specifically, land governance is of very high relevance globally, but also very directly to BMZ. BMZ, Germany has been providing support to the Global Landscapes Forum from start and is one of the key providers of financial assistance to the Global Landscapes Forum. We really want to keep this going. We attach highest relevance. That's also why my Vice Minister, Mr. Flassbart, has already addressed earlier sessions. I think no need in today's group to highlight the importance of land rights, of land tenure, of intact and healthy landscapes. We're all experts, that's why we're here. But indeed, we face multiple crises today. One, of course, and it's been around for a while, is climate change. But we've had the pandemic, most recently the Russian aggression against Ukraine. All of this puts pressure on the food systems and then, of course, in consequence, on land and the use of land. We know, and it is a figure maybe only known to us, so we need to spread it more. 1 billion people do not have secure land rights. They're in fear of losing their home or the land tenure due to this insecurity. And given the pressures that I just mentioned, that is just unacceptable. We really need to work on securing land rights more. And that is why I think today's session comes so timely. We want to look at practical approaches. We want to listen to voices from stakeholders and get an idea what are the proper ways to go forward, how to avoid unwanted investment practices, how to fight the pressures that I just mentioned, and of course also how to empower those who we want to be the custodians of healthy, productive, intact landscapes. So there's a lot of potential, of course. As I mentioned, those who we want to be the custodians, people who need to be able to trust in their right to use this land with a long-term perspective so they will really manage their resources sustainable. We understand fair and secure access to land, as well as improved framework conditions for responsible investments in land, are essential. They're essential for sustainable rural development, for food security, for sustainable use of land resources, and of course, for the protection of those landscapes. Accordingly, land governance and good land governance is a key prerequisite for achieving all the goals we have in mind when we talk about sustainable land use. And that is, of course, feed the people, but also protecting global biodiversity and contributing to fighting climate change. It is the people who are the custodians of the land that have to do the job, but we have to give them the security that it is worth to do this, and that it is their land that they put to work in this respect. For this, our new global strategy of transforming agri-food systems really puts these people, puts the smallholder farmers to its center. And one key point, of course, is the right to land and equal access to land, equal to both men and women, but also to the youth who often have very high hurdles to acquire new land, to get the financing that they need. We pay special attention, as I was saying, to the rights of women, to not marginalized populations, but also to the social norms that, aside from the legal framework, often put a hurdle on fair and equitable land use. We want to work with our partners on solving and preventing conflicts over land. We promote transparency in the land sector with the aim to tackle, of course, corruptions. Since 10 years, and this year marks the 10th anniversary of the UN voluntary guidelines on responsible governance of tenure of lands, fishery and forest, we have a good legal framework. But of course, although these are voluntary, they're binding in a moral sense. So we have a lot of framework and rules, but what it needs is, and that is why our workshop is so important, is really walk the talk. So the practical sides and aspects. That is what we're looking at with our global program, Responsible Land Policy, in which we really try to walk this talk. I'm very curious to hear and exchange with you the wide range of approaches, of methods, of technologies, of tools that we have at hand to make it happen. Let's jointly continue to shape the transformation of food systems. Let's strengthen together the resilience of local communities and their use of their landscapes. I wish us all a very inspiring session with lots of valuable insights in the practical work that is on the way. Maybe spark new ideas, learn from each other, and let's get it on with. I'm in keeping of my time. Hand over back to you and wish us all a very successful and inspiring session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hope. Thank you for that quick insight into land governance and the role, the very important role that fair access to tenure security is going to play in transforming the agri-food systems and also increasing resilience in the communities that we all live in. Thank you for your remarks. I would like then to invite Mr. Klaus Ackermann, who is the head of the global program, Responsible Land Policy, to come and give us an insight more into what it does and the achievements it has reached. You're welcome, Klaus.
Thank you, Maria. Dear colleagues and friends, also hello from my side. I want to present very shortly this global program Responsible Land Policy, which was already mentioned by Mr. Hoppe. Please. Yeah, just some global information on the program. You see the budget, you see the duration. This global program is part of the special initiative One World No Hunger of our German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And we are currently working in 7 countries, which is Laos, Uganda, Madagascar, Ethiopia, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso. And we are in the middle of operational missions in order to include also Niger and Cameroon into this global project. Yes, please. The overall objective is the improvement of access to land, especially in rural areas, with a specific focus on women and marginalized groups. And here, of course, we consider this as a prerequisite for reducing hunger and poverty. We have 3 main fields of action. The first one is improving the institutional framework and processes for securing land rights. And here it's also our main indicator, which says how many households have really better and secured land rights with support of this program. The second field of action is underlining the important role of civil society organizations in the land governance sector, as you know. And here we are strengthening those organizations in participating in formulation and implementation of land policies. We also support them in their important role in land registration processes and, for instance, also in conflict mediation. A third field of action, which is not implemented in each country where we work, it's on the improvement of the framework conditions for responsible agricultural and forestry investment. And here we have support from a European Union co-financement for 3 countries, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Laos. What is important to mention, we are not working alone in these countries, but also in partnership with other projects in order to link land governance, secure land rights to other sectors. For instance, in Madagascar, Ethiopia, and Cote d'Ivoire, we are working on the edge to forest landscape restoration. In Benin, Burkina Faso, we are working also on the link on pastoralism. Uganda, Madagascar, Ethiopia on the link of migration, soil protection, rehabilitation of soil also in Burkina, Madagascar, and Benin. Just to show you that land governance, land rights have to be linked to sectors which are also, how to say, working then with the people on the land. Yes, please. And here is the last slide, just to give you a short impression where we are going. So you see the horizontal bars are indicating our target values about, and the blue part is where we are at the moment. So we have 4 main indicators. So the first one is the number of households with secured land rights. So at the end, for the time being, we will have about 400,000, which corresponds to more or less 2 million people of secured land rights, with secured land rights. And actually, we are more or less on 180,000. Yeah, part of it are women, so we are at 70,000 more or less, and also marginalized people. Then we have a bunch of good practices we are going to produce, and here the idea and the objective is to document approaches which have the potential for upscaling, be it in land management, be it in land tenure security, be it in conflict mediation or other issues we are facing. Then, of course, which is closely linked to the securitization of land rights, is also the mediation of land conflicts. That's why we have always the target to solve to a high percentage those conflicts. And then regarding this third field of action I mentioned, we have the objective to support, accompany investments in order they will be aligned to those international principles and guidelines. What is important to mention, we target, as I mentioned in the beginning, so we consider land governance, secure land rights as a prerequisites for reduction of poverty and hunger. So we see indirect impacts which we are also supporting in collaboration with other sectors. Increase of agricultural productivity, where we see land rights are an important prerequisite for this. Increased investment in soil productivity. We see already really good evidence that secured land rights also contribute to the reduction of number of conflicts, social cohesion and peace. And so this just to give an overall picture of the global project and its, how to say, impact chain we are targeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Klaus, for that background and overview of the responsible land policy. And we can see already from what Mr. Hope mentioned of the 2 million unsecured tenure rights, you're already halfway there almost. So, and I would like to remind the participants, if you have any questions for the presenters so far, for our speakers, please present them in the chat. And we already have some experts from the responsible land policy in the audience, so they can help answer any questions you might have so far. Yes, I would like to invite our next presenter, Mr. Bala Sanu. He is a geographer and a co-founder of the Impact Research Institute. He has a vast experience in land governance and has been helping and supporting communities secure access to land for women, youth, migrants, and indigenous people. So, Mr. Bala, you're welcome. Would like to, I think, first play a short video of the story he's going to tell, and then he will present right after.
Bego mika cheni kanga furula. Ama in riske now. Alaban, atna fen sorofu.
Kabitu majan, ni au kelengini be lasamuya, ni gere ku natara. Moko shimanga kumata. Ne koni, manga furu kono. Mana bega yen fei. Mbafa. Fana wula ka sanfɛ yɔrɔ bɛɛ feere bɔrɔ tan ma. Amolo bɔrɔ yɔrɔ min. Ama mɔgɔ si ka fɛta ɲinanga. O bɛ kɛ ya. Tɛmɛsa ti bɛgɔn fɛ san o. A ko kana tiɲɛni kɛ foro la. A bɛ kɛ di, o bɛ tiɲɛni kɛ. An ye baro dɔ sɔrɔ kunu dɔrɔbuna ne ni n balimancɛw dɔ. O baro kun taara ka sin baganw ka tɛmɛ sira ma. Ale ni kɔda fana min kɛra jagokɛyɔrɔ ye. Ayiwa, baganw ti sara sɔrɔ ka se kɔda la ka ji min. Ne kɔni fɛ nin ko nin n'an ma fɛɛrɛ sɔrɔ a la, a bɛ sɔn ka kɛ koba ye an ka dugu kɔnɔ yan.
Nin ko ɲɛ nin a ka gɛlɛn bi mɔgɔw olu bɛ jateminɛ babaw de la. Kuma bɛɛ dugu lasigidenw minnu bɛ sɔrɔ kunna u bɛ ɲɔgɔn ye la nin ko nin kan walasa a bɛ se ka ɲɛnabɔ cogoya min. CVD mɔgɔ yɛrɛw u bɛ sɛnɛ kɛ u bɛ nakɔ baara kɛ ani fɛn wɛrɛw. Mais ne hakilina an ka se ka ɲɛ sɔrɔ na furututu dugu ka dugumakolon gafe n'a ka kan ka dilan a bɛ wajibi an bɛɛ lajɛlen de ma, an bɛɛ lajɛlen. Dugutigi e b'a sira taama kɛ walasa an bɛ se ka gafe nin dilan ni minnu b'a fɛ olu bɛ taa filɛ ani an b'a bila an kɔfɛ mɔgɔw ye. Foli b'aw ye.
To give us his presentation.
Merci bien. Alors, pour ce qui est de la présentation de Burkina, il va porter vraiment sur une expérience pratique de recherche-action réalisée ici dans le cadre des activités de ProPFR. Première slide, s'il vous plaît. En 4 mois de recherche, nous avons vraiment contribué à rendre visible un ensemble d'informations tournant autour du contexte, des approches et des outils utilisés et de 3 messages clés. Alors, au niveau du contexte, oui. Ce qui est important ici, c'est de relever que la recherche-action s'est déroulée en 4 mois et a permis de mettre en exergue 13 types de conflits fonciers qui concernent le pastoralisme. Alors que généralement, on parle seulement de conflits agriculteurs-éleveurs. Il y a jusqu'à 13 types. Le défi majeur, c'est que nous sommes intervenus dans un contexte de crise sécuritaire avec des exemples de stigmatisation d'éleveurs de loups. Et cela pose un problème de fond. C'est la faible représentation des éleveurs transhumants et même des éleveurs établis dans les instances villageoises de gestion des conflits et du foncier. La configuration de l'espace a changé dans les villages et nous avons tendance à parfois rester trop au centre lorsqu'on parle des instances villageoises en oubliant les quartiers périphériques où habitent généralement les éleveurs dans les hameaux en périphérie. Deuxième slide, s'il vous plaît. En lien donc avec ce contexte, les éléments de solution que nous avons recherchés, c'est de créer des outils de dialogue appropriés qui permettent vraiment la contribution de tous les acteurs. Et à cet effet, nous avons beaucoup utilisé le théâtre forum, qui permet la participation des jeunes, des femmes, des anciens et de toute la population. Et comme vous voyez sur l'image, la dame en bas, avec le micro en main, elle représente un ensemble de femmes qui ont toujours contribué aux échanges que nous avons eus pour effectivement donner leur point de vue par rapport à la recherche de solutions autour de ces conflits agriculteurs-éleveurs. Merci. Dernière slide, s'il vous plaît. À travers ces échanges, nous avons retenu 3 messages clés à partager. Nous mettons l'accent sur le dialogue communautaire inclusif. Il s'agit de nous assurer que toutes les composantes sociales participent aux échanges au niveau des instances villageoises, pas seulement les acteurs qui sont au niveau central. Deuxième message clé, cette recherche-action nous a montré qu'il y a un ensemble de structures dans les villages qui contribuent à la gestion des conflits. Alors, nous avons accompagné un dialogue pour nous assurer une synergie. Il n'y a pas de choix à faire, mais plutôt permettre à chacune de ces structures de contribuer à apporter effectivement sa pierre dans la recherche des solutions. Dernier élément concret qui a clôturé ce processus de recherche-action, c'est que l'espace a besoin plus que jamais d'être mieux aménagé. Il faut des initiatives de planification et d'aménagement de l'espace pour une meilleure gestion des ressources naturelles. Et dans ce cadre, avec ProPFR, un point concret a été l'élaboration d'une charte foncière locale dans la zone pastorale de Kourou. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Bala, for your presentation. And as we can see, the walk the talk is already being implemented by having innovations that involve women and youth while trying to resolve the conflicts that they already have and giving them a voice to share their opinions and their grievances. So we thank you for your presentation. People in the audience, participants, if you have any questions, please, I remind you to share them, and colleagues from Burkina Faso, can already help answer some of the questions. Yes, I would like to now invite the mayor of the municipality of Yoko, Mr. Dieudonné, from Cameroon. He's going to share with us his presentation and the experiences in Cameroon.
Oui, bonjour. Et merci de me permettre de prendre part à ce forum. Et je voudrais vous dire qu'au Cameroun, la gestion foncière relève d'un ministère qui est le ministère des Domaines et des Affaires foncières. Mais en termes de planification urbaine, planification spatiale, planification territoire, c'est le maire, à travers son conseil municipal, qui approuve les 10 documents. Mais malheureusement, nous ne sommes pas impliqués dans la procédure d'attribution des titres fonciers. À l'heure actuelle, il y a des mauvaises pratiques, surtout dans les communes forestières qui étaient enclavées et qui bénéficient, vous allez voir là, de la commune de Yoko, dont je suis le maire, bénéficie d'un grand projet d'aménagement qui va permettre de relier le port de Douala à la capitale, au Cameroun, à la capitale N'Djamena au Tchad. Donc, la terre de Yoko obtient de la valeur. Dans les espaces forestiers, les exploitants forestiers ouvrent des pistes et des grandes exploitations agricoles s'installent. Des grands promoteurs immobiliers viennent de partout et achètent des terres au niveau des villages. Ils ont fini de vendre dans les forêts, ils sont maintenant dans les savanes. Et qu'est-ce qui se passe? C'est que les pâturages se réduisent. Tout autour du pâturage, il y a des exploitations agricoles, il y a des disputes, et nous aboutissons de manière progressive à une situation hautement conflictuelle entre les communautés locales qui sont dans l'agriculture et les communautés d'éleveurs qui viennent des pays voisins du fait de la migration climatique ou du fait de la transhumance. Au niveau des procédures de légalisation foncière, les populations sont ignorantes. L'opération d'accès au titre foncier coûte cher. Les femmes, les jeunes n'ont pas suffisamment de moyens et nous assistons à une discrimination des femmes, car sur le plan de nos coutumes, les femmes n'héritent pas de la terre. Quand elles vont en mariage ou quand elles décèdent, elles n'ont pas droit à la terre. Ça crée donc des difficultés. Est-ce qu'on doit rester indifférent? En attendant, nous avons des innovations. Au niveau de la commune de Yoko, dont je suis le maire, nous avons obtenu un financement pour les femmes qui nous a permis d'organiser un concours et de sélectionner
Mr. Dieudonné, we can't hear you. Anyone try to contact the mayor, Mr. Dieudonné, as I will complete the last part of his presentation. I think the municipality perspectives are the way forwards that they're trying to resolve the issues that he mentioned before. One of those is obtaining communal land title in the council forests, and that will help with the land registration procedure that is currently blocked or that is the challenge for that solution, increase of the area of private domain of the municipality, and then they want to obtain temporary concessions for the municipality and the benefit of communities in general, women who have been marginalized, as he mentioned before, and promote agri-silvicultural land use. And he also wanted to communicate that one of the suggested solutions is local land use planning, and in that they're finalizing and implementing the SOP. That was his contribution.
Okay, décembre de retour.
Beg your pardon.
Décembre de retour. Donc, au niveau des perspectives, la commune. Merci.
Okay, thank you, the mayor. Thank you for presenting your countries. And we can see they already have challenges of women being marginalized, and they are trying to resolve that. So also trying to walk the talk of inclusivity in land governance. We shall move on to our last presenter today, who is from Uganda. This is Mr. Wilfred Babanga, and he's a program manager at ZOA. They work on projects in the northern part of Uganda, which is a region that is known to host a lot of refugees. And they have been working in the areas of land rights and economic development, both for the refugees and the hosts. So welcome, Mr. Wilfred. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to present on behalf of ZOA. This is the presentation outline I have. As the title of the presentation, the location of the intervention, the context, and there are 3 photos I'm going to talk about. And finally, I'm going to go over some quotations that are given by the community members. The project is entitled Improvement of Land Governance for Refugees and Host Communities. And the location is in Uganda, that is East Africa, specifically the West Nile region, Oriama sub-county. In terms of context, we have 45 villages that we're working in. The population is 27,400, and 20% of these in the community of Oriama are refugees. And more than 90% of the people are involved in agriculture. The common way of land holding in this community is customary land ownership, and this is not registered land. And the biggest challenge I'm going to talk about is conflict between the host communities and the refugees. There's the photo in the center, the first slide. That is actually a family of refugees. You can see that most of them are children. When they escape from their country of origin, it's mostly children and women. And they are given a piece of land which is 50 by 50 feet. And on this land, they construct their house. If you look at the foreground, you see they've planted some vegetables. That's all the land they have to supplement the rations that are given to them by the World Food Program. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, yes. On this slide, I first want to talk about the picture Okay, you have gone ahead. Yeah, stop on this one. Yeah, this is the slide I'm talking about. Yeah, the lady in yellow is a refugee lady. She has identified a piece of land, and she has come with her family members and has they're in a meeting together with the land owners who are the host community, the Ugandans. So they discussed how to rent this land, how much it is. By use of the tenancy agreement, then they can sign the document. In this gathering, we have the community leaders, the lower local government from both sides. You have the refugee leaders and the host community leaders. In the middle there you see the stamp. It says LC1 chairperson, Akino Village, Akino Parish. That's an authentic stamp which was actually put on one of the tenancy agreements. I want to talk about the picture on the lower left side of the slide. We have the man shaking the hands of a lady. The man is a Ugandan, and the lady is a Sudanese refugee. She happens to be a widow. They have signed a tenancy agreement, and this has provided the lady with 1 acre of land. And if you see in the background, there are some crops. The crops that you see there are sesame crops, which are now in advanced stages. And the lady is looking forward to harvesting some sesame. She will sell some of it, and she will use the rest for her family. So this supplements the rations they get from the World Food Program. Now, if such a lady is left on her own, a widow, and if she had to go and negotiate with the communities from Uganda, you can see that it is easy for the host communities to override her. But the tenancy agreement is a good document that now provides some security over the land that is rented by the refugees. So this is one of the examples of the successful use of the tenancy agreement. It shows that practical and transparent solutions regarding access to and use of land are important for social cohesion and peace. For us to ensure that this use of the tenancy agreement is widespread, we have been going around raising awareness in the communities, starting with the leaders of both communities, the refugees and the host communities, and then the general public. They are taught about this document and how it can help them avoid conflict. It is increasingly becoming popular now. In case disputes come up, we also train the community leaders in alternative dispute resolution. And so far, we have not encountered any disputes arising from the use of the tenancy agreement. But at least the communities have been empowered already in case in future we have such disputes arising. In the past, we had situations where because of lack of proper agreements between the refugees and the host communities, you would have a refugee maybe agreeing to use land from the host community, and she would maybe he would plow the land, and when he's ready to plant something, the Ugandan owner of the land would just come and sow his own plants in it. And that often caused a lot of conflict. But with the advent of the tenancy agreement, we are seeing less of this happening, and more people are now resorting to use the tenancy agreement. I'm now going to conclude. I just want to conclude by giving some quotations from both the refugee community and the host community. A village leader from the host community says, the tenancy agreement can help solve land conflicts, improve peace, and increase food security. Whereas the refugee lady says like this, most of us are illiterate and do not know what we have agreed to. We are often chased away from the land. The tenancy agreement will work for our benefit and help us in the future. So this presentation was all about showing you how the tenancy agreement is working in the communities in the northwestern region of Uganda. So this is where I will end, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilfred from ZOA. Thank you for sharing, and we can see again the tenancy agreement innovation that you have spoken of is already increasing productivity of the refugee woman, which will enable her to feed her family and also earn some money from it. So thank you for your contribution, and thank you for listening. Thank you to our speakers for sharing their experiences in their countries and everything that you're contributing. I would like to ask a few questions to the speakers to kick off our discussion. I encourage the participants to send in their questions or keep liking the questions because we are about to share them. To the Uganda and the Burkina Faso speakers, we've seen that you have really tried to make the access to land tenure security accessible. My question is, how accessible is the process and how transparent is the process? Do the refugees or the pastoralists know about the process or the different steps they need to take to secure their tenure rights and increase their productivity, especially the marginalized groups? Mr. Wilfred mentioned that they have already put in place measures to combat the disputes that will arise in the future. Have you done sensitization about the tenancy agreements to all the refugees, and how inclusive are these sensitizations?
Okay, may I respond to that question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, what happens is we have produced a number of these tenancy agreements, and they are kept at the lowest local government offices, that is LC1, and then from the refugee side, we have the Refugee Welfare Council 1, that is the lowest level of administration. So anybody who wants to use this document can go and pick them from those authorities and use it. And actually they are doing that, especially during the planting season. We see more and more of that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilfred. Another question would be to the Burkina Faso speaker. What innovative ways have you used to try and harmonize the coexistence of herders and farmers? I saw that that was the biggest issue there, and the sensitizations, are those helping? What other ways have you been using to harmonize the coexistence?
Allô? Vous m'entendez? Allô?
Yeah.
Vous m'entendez maintenant?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Au niveau du Burkina, on a bien votre préoccupation. La démarche que nous avons utilisée est voulue participative et surtout a été orientée à une échelle où les communautés locales ont été vraiment mises au centre de notre démarche. Nous avons vraiment pris le temps de comprendre quels sont les acteurs à la base qui ont un rôle spécifique déjà attribué selon les coutumes? Quels sont les autres acteurs aussi qui sont dans les villages qui n'ont pas forcément un rôle attribué ni par les coutumes ni par la loi, mais qui ont quand même une influence sur la question des relations entre les communautés? Je vous donne un exemple concret. Dans les approches de gestion des conflits fonciers, il y a des acteurs qui sont derrière les écrans qu'on a tendance à oublier. C'est les ressortissants non résidents du village. Et dans notre démarche, nous avons fait l'effort. Il faut veiller à ce que les fils et les filles du village, même si ils ne sont pas résidents, soient vraiment impliqués dans tout le processus que nous sommes en train de conduire en termes de dialogue entre les acteurs par rapport à cette question sensible. Et je pense que cette démarche a permis justement d'avoir la voix des acteurs qui sont visibles et aussi de ceux qui sont invisibles pour être sûr que nous avons des accords qui engagent les présents visibles et les présents invisibles, pour dire de façon imagée. C'est vraiment ce message important de la démarche sur laquelle nous avons insisté et nous continuons d'insister en termes d'apprentissage et également de démarche à développer. C'est bon, vous m'entendez?
Yes, we were able to hear you, Mr. Bala, and thank you for that response. We can already see that you are already ensuring that the people, the community has access to these dispute resolution services because you're using and engaging people already part of the community. So thank you for that. And now I would go over to Laura, who has been our chat moderator for the participants, to give us one of the questions that has been most liked for our speakers to discuss and answer.
Sure. Thank you very much, Maria. And thank you to all participants who have asked their questions in the chat. So the one question which has had the most likes is the following: does land privatization increase food security? And another question would be, after dialogues between the pastoralists and agriculturalists, has there been a physical change on the land? Back over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Laura. And I would like to open the floor for discussion, but to our speakers, for especially on the land privatization, how has it increased food security? Because from our first speaker, Mr. Hope, we saw that transformation of agri-food systems is a key now amid all the crises that the world is suffering, from climate change to pandemics and all that is going on. So how do you think that land privatization has improved productivity and access to food security? I would start from Uganda. Mr. Wilfred, what are your, kindly share your thoughts on that question.
Kindly repeat the question, please.
Okay, Laura, kindly repeat the first question about privatization.
Sure. The first question was if land privatization increases food security.
Okay. Yeah, from our experience, I would say indeed land privatization does increase food security in this way. You notice that the land that is being rented from the refugees, by the refugees, they are able to supplement the rations that they get from the World Food Program, and they can even plant enough to sell some of the crops. So in that way, they are able to improve their food security. Whereas for the host communities, the land which is idle, which they are unable to use, they rent it out for some money, and that money they can also use to, you can put it in food, and otherwise that land would have been idle if they couldn't rent it to anyone. I think in this way we can actually see the link between land privatization and food security. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilfred, for that contribution. Any of the other speakers have an experience that would answer that question of land privatization and increase of food security? Okay,
yes.
Yes, please, Klaus.
Thank you, Maria. I just could add something. Two elements I would like to add. So we have to be aware that it's when we speak of land privatization and land tenure security. So first, we are not only speaking of individual land rights and not only on land titles, but we are also addressing use rights. So, for instance, we have it in Uganda. We have landowners, and on the landowners we have tenants. So it's also kind of agreement between landowner and tenant to have kind of really security for the land use with perspective. So this we have to take into account. And then it's not only individual, but it's also collective. So if we're talking on land tenure security, we are also addressing collective land rights, for instance, for user groups who are doing forest management also, or other activities. Yeah, so this we have to take into account. And then regarding food security, yes, I'm convinced that land tenure security is also contributing and also in much cases a prerequisite for improving food security. So there's also evidence that women who have secured land rights, they use the land more efficiently and also invest more in agricultural production. So there are evidence from Uganda, also from Food and Agriculture Organization and other countries. So we have evidences on this, and that's why we can also be convinced on this connection, land rights and food security. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus. The mayor was trying to say something. Mayor Dieudonné, please come in, your contribution.
Oui, je voudrais, dans le cas spécifique de ma commune au Cameroun, donner deux leviers, deux axes à cette réponse. Je suis d'accord avec vous, la privatisation foncière en termes de propriété donne plus d'assurance aux associations féminines, nous l'avons fait avec vous. Mais là, la propriété, privatisation foncière dans notre domaine, ce qui concerne l'espace forestier, c'est tellement immense ici que ça étouffe la commune. Nous avons des sociétés privées qui ont des unités forestières d'aménagement qui ont pratiquement plus de la moitié du territoire et des terres riches. Or, vous ne pouvez pas entrer à l'intérieur du fait qu'ils ont un titre légal, la forêt leur appartient. Il y a des forêts, il y a des savanes. Donc, dans le cas de la commune de Yoko au Cameroun, il y a deux fenêtres. La première, je suis d'accord avec vous, la privatisation pour des fermiers locaux qui sont des femmes, et ainsi de suite, ça améliore. Mais maintenant, on devrait peut-être revoir la politique forestière au Cameroun pour que les grosses industries qui ont des domaines fonciers puissent ouvrir certains espaces à l'agriculture. Oui, je vous remercie, c'est ma contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Dieudonné. That is a very good argument, because I would ask who is privately owning this land, because if it's someone, as he mentioned, the big companies are making it difficult for the communities and giving them very smaller chunks of the land, and they can't as well be more productive on the smaller chunks, as opposed to when the community itself is one privately owning the land, the individuals, the local farmers, that would increase their productivity and improve the food security in sense. So we have two sides to this. I think that question has been answered. I would like to move over to our next question. Laura?
Sure, thank you, Maria. The next question was regarding the Burkina Faso case and was the following. After dialogues between the pastoralists and agriculturalists, has there been a physical change on the land?
Oui,
Yes, Mr. Bala.
Yeah, ok. Merci bien. Du Burkina Faso, comme je l'ai dit, le dialogue, en fait, le processus de recherche d'action a été conduit en s'orientant sur quelque chose de concret pour arriver à une amélioration des relations entre ces deux types de communautés. L'outil qui nous a permis d'arriver à une entente foncière locale qui respecte les droits de ces communautés, c'est ce que nous avons appelé la charte foncière locale pour la zone pastorale de Boni. Qu'est-ce que charte foncière locale? C'est simplement un outil qui reconnaît sur le territoire d'une commune un espace qui va cohabiter avec l'agriculture et permettre aux éleveurs de mener de façon paisible également leur activité. Ce dialogue a été facilité dans la mesure où c'est vraiment les populations locales qui avaient la maîtrise foncière traditionnelle sur cet espace qui ont concédé à céder une partie pour que ce soit aménagé et classé ou retenu en tout cas comme zone de repli des éleveurs. La zone pastorale de Boni a été du moins délimitée sur à peu près 2000 hectares, je ne me rappelle plus de la superficie. Mais le plus important, sorry, je vois qu'on n'entend rien. Est-ce que vous entendez maintenant?
Yes, we can.
OK. OK. Donc, je dis, là, ce qui est vraiment important à retenir, c'est que c'est dans le dialogue que les agriculteurs ont accepté de concéder une superficie relativement importante de leur terre pour qu'ils soient aménagés vraiment afin que les éleveurs transhumants ou établis puissent avoir un espace de repli de leurs animaux, notamment en saison des pluies, où il y a souvent les conflits les plus importants. Et c'est comme ça qu'on a pu arriver à élaborer une charte foncière locale.
Thank you, Mr. Bala. I think that answers the question perfectly. There has been a change because a community that understands each other and works together, in the case of Cameroon, has created an environment where both pastoralists and the community give each other the necessary environment, a conducive environment for both to grow at the same time and develop. So thank you for the questions. As we are getting a bit, our time is almost up. I would like to share our key messages from the session and close it. Those are key messages. I think we can all agree that from Burkina Faso, we can see that fair and secure access to land is a key prerequisite to achieve sustainable transformation of agri-food systems and must be systematically considered in development approaches. Secure land tenure in Cameroon and use of indigenous people and local communities is a key for sustainable management and rehabilitation of natural resources and thus for climate protection, as shared by Mr. Bala as he answered the last question. And in Uganda, for our refugee case, practical and transparent solutions regarding access to and use of land are important for social cohesion and peace. This becomes even more relevant as migration due to conflicts or climate change and degrading landscape is likely to increase. We have seen all this from the presentation, and I would like to thank our presenters for sharing with us. We've learned so much and would like to take the lessons we've learned and apply them in our communities or in our different programs where we are going. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for participating. And thank you to the team for making the session a success. I would like to close.
Everyone loves a good story, and here at GLF, we enjoy telling authentic African stories told from an African perspective and narrative. These young storytellers are changing the narrative of the people, cultures, and landscapes of Africa. In this session, we shall also explore how environmental policies can prompt transformative change and establish ecosystem restoration.